Commander Celix Ven stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Earth, the humans called it Earth. Such a simple name for a world that would soon belong to the Velthari Dominion. He had done this many times before. 300 years of service had taught him exactly how these things went. His fleet would arrive. The primitive species would see their ships blocking out the sky. There would be panic, screaming, chaos. Then within hours, surrender. It was always the same. Every single time. 200 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel and positioned themselves above the planet's major cities. The vessels were enormous, each one capable of turning a continent into glass. Celix allowed himself a small smile. This would be easy. His reports said humans were barely spacefaring. They had only reached their own moon. They were children playing with rocks while the Dominion commanded the stars. "Begin the broadcast," Celix ordered. His communication officer sent the message to every device on the planet. Every screen, every radio, every phone carried the same words. The Velthari Dominion claimed this world. Resistance was foolish. Surrender was the only logical choice. Celix waited for the terror to begin. He waited and waited. Something was wrong on the screens showing Earth's surface. He saw humans looking up at his ships. They pointed. They took photographs. Some of them waved. A group of young humans held up a large sign that read "Welcome to Earth," with a crude drawing of a smiling face. "What are they doing?" Celix asked. His second officer checked her instruments. "They appear to be documenting our arrival, Commander, for their social networks." "Their what?" "It is a system where humans share images and short messages with each other. Currently, images of our fleet are being shared millions of times. The most common responses are..." She paused, her face showing confusion. "Jokes, Commander. They are making jokes about us." Celix felt his jaw tighten. This was not panic. This was not terror. He did not know what this was. Hours passed. Then a full day. The Dominion's formal demand for surrender sat unanswered. When Celix ordered his officers to contact Earth's leaders directly, they received a polite response from something called the United Nations. The message thanked them for their interest in Earth and explained that the relevant committee would review their request. They asked if the Dominion could please provide documentation of their authority to claim planets. Documentation? They wanted paperwork. Celix read the message 3 times, certain he was missing something. In 7,000 conquered star systems, no species had ever asked for paperwork. More days passed. Human news programs discussed the invasion between weather reports and sports scores. Politicians gave speeches about forming committees. Lawyers argued about whether alien treaties fell under maritime law or required new legislation. A popular human entertainer made a song about the Dominion that became something called a viral hit. One of Celix's officers showed him a video from a human city. A Velthari patrol ship hovered low over a street, its weapons visible, its engines shaking the ground. A human male walked directly beneath it, talking into a small device. He was complaining about the price of coffee. He did not look up once. "They are not afraid," the officer said quietly. "They are stupid," Celix replied. But doubt had begun to grow in his chest like a cold seed. He ordered another broadcast. This one was more direct, more threatening. He gave humanity 48 hours to surrender or face consequences. The response came from a mid-level diplomat named Jennifer Santos. She apologized for the delay and explained that the surrender committee had not yet reached a decision. She asked if the Dominion could submit their demands in triplicate for proper filing. Celix had never felt rage quite like this before. "They are testing us," he told his council. "They think we will not act. We must show them the truth of Dominion power." He chose a target carefully. A small island in the Pacific Ocean, far from major population centers, uninhabited except for birds and crabs. He ordered one ship to fire. The island ceased to exist. Where there had been green trees and white sand, there was only steam rising from boiling water. The message was clear. Silix broadcast to the planet again. This is your final warning. Surrender now, or your cities will share this fate. For 12 hours, Earth was silent. Then the response came. Not from the United Nations. Not from any government. It came from everywhere at once. Silix watched his screens fill with data he could not understand. Humans were communicating in volumes that seemed impossible. Military channels that had been dormant suddenly blazed with activity. Scientific facilities that had shown minimal power usage now burned bright. Something was happening beneath the surface of human society. Something fast and coordinated and completely unexpected. But on the surface, everything looked the same. The diplomats continued their endless talking. The committees continued their meetings. Jennifer Santos sent another polite message asking for clarification on Dominion filing procedures. They are afraid now, Silix told his officers. They are simply too proud to show it. His second officer studied her instruments with a troubled expression. Commander, I am detecting unusual activity in human industrial centers. Manufacturing has increased by 400% across all major nations. They are building weapons, Silix said with confidence. Primitive missiles and bombs. Our shields will handle anything they can produce. Yes, Commander. But there is something else. Their research facilities are showing power signatures I cannot identify, and their communication patterns. She shook her head. It appears that nations which were previously hostile to each other are now sharing information freely. All of them. Every nation on the planet? Silix dismissed her concerns. Humans were primitives. Whatever they were planning could not possibly threaten a Dominion fleet. He looked out at the blue planet below, already composing his victory report in his mind. Another successful conquest. Another world added to Dominion territory. The High Council would be pleased. He did not notice the way the human diplomats smiled during their video calls. He did not see the quiet determination in their eyes. He did not understand that behind every polite word and bureaucratic delay, species was waking up. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting itself. Nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. Brother against brother. They had never faced a common enemy. They had never had a reason to truly unite. Now they did, and in secret facilities around the world. In basement workshops and university labs, in military bunkers, in corporate research centers, the human race began to prepare. They would only get one chance. They intended to make it. Kant, Dr. Elena Vasquez, had spent 15 years being laughed at. Her theories about quantum energy fields were called impossible. Her papers were rejected from every major journal. Her colleagues whispered that she had wasted her brilliant mind chasing fantasies. 3 days after the Velthri destroyed the Pacific Island, she received a phone call that changed everything. Dr. Vasquez, the voice said, your country needs you. Your planet needs you. We are sending a helicopter. Within hours, she stood in an underground facility she had never known existed. It stretched for miles beneath the Nevada desert, filled with equipment that should not exist. Technology that governments had hidden for decades, inventions that had been buried because they would disrupt economies or shift power balances. None of that mattered now. You have 6,000 researchers at your command, General Morrison told her. Every nation has contributed their best. Chinese quantum physicists, Russian weapons engineers, European mathematicians. They are all yours. Whatever you need, you will have. Lena looked at the faces around her. People who had been rivals for their entire careers. Scientists from countries that had threatened each other with nuclear weapons just months ago. Now, they stood together, waiting for her instructions. What do we know about their technology? She asked. A young man stepped forward. His name was Dr. Wei Chen, and Alina recognized him as one of her harshest critics. Their ships use a quantum-locked communication system, he said. Every piece of Dominion technology is connected through it. Navigation, weapons, life support, everything. Can we break it? Wei shook his head. No one can break it. The encryption is beyond anything we have ever seen. He paused, and a small smile crossed his face. But I read your paper from 2019, the one everyone said was nonsense. I think you found something they missed. Lena felt her heart begin to race. Her impossible theory. Her fantasy that had ruined her career. Maybe it was not so impossible after all. While the scientists worked, the rest of humanity played its part. In Washington, diplomats continued their endless negotiations. They asked questions about Dominion law. They requested cultural exchanges. They proposed joint committees to study the transition of power. Every conversation lasted hours and accomplished nothing. The Velthri grew bored. Some of their officers began learning human languages to pass the time. Others watched human entertainment, finding it primitive but amusing. A few even made contact with humans on the surface. Curious about these strange creatures who did not seem to understand they had been conquered, they saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. In Moscow, an old woman named Anya Petrov led a group of amateur astronomers. Before the invasion, they had met weekly to look at stars and drink tea. Now they worked in shifts around the clock, tracking every Velthri patrol ship, mapping their patterns, noting their blind spots. They sent their reports through channels that could not be traced. In Tokyo, a teenager named Kenji Yamamoto led a group of hackers who had once broken into bank systems for fun. Now they probed Dominion communication frequencies, searching for weaknesses. They found something interesting. The aliens used predictable patterns in their security rotations. The information went up the chain in Snow Paulo. Factory workers built small devices according to plans they did not understand. The components looked simple, almost like toys. But the workers had been told these toys would save their children, their families, their world. They worked without rest, producing thousands of units each day in 100 countries. 1,000 cities, 1,000,000 homes, ordinary people did extraordinary things. They kept secrets. They shared information. They prepared without knowing exactly what they were preparing for. Commander Silex noticed none of it. His reports to the High Council were confident. The humans continued their silly bureaucratic games, but they would surrender eventually. Every species did. It was simply a matter of time. They are primitive, he told the Council. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their weapons cannot scratch our shields. Their unity is an illusion that will collapse when we apply pressure. The Council was pleased. They began making plans for Earth's resources. Human workers would be useful in their mines. Human scientists, once properly educated, might contribute to Dominion research. It would be a successful conquest, just like all the others. 6 months passed. Dr. Vasquez slept an average of 3 hours per night. Her team had made progress that should have taken decades. Wei Chen's theoretical framework combined with her quantum field equations had produced something remarkable. They could not break Dominion encryption, but they had found something better. We can talk to it, Elena explained to General Morrison. Their entire system is built on quantum entanglement. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology is connected to every other piece. They think this makes them strong. It does not. It makes them vulnerable. Explain it simply, the general said. Elena took a deep breath. Imagine their technology as a single nervous system spread across 200 ships. If we send the right signal, we can make that entire nervous system go numb. Everything stops working at once. Not destroyed, just ... asleep. How long? Hours. Maybe a full day if we are lucky. Long enough? The general nodded slowly. Long enough for what? Elena's eyes were hard. Long enough for us to take their ships. The plan came together in the final weeks. Devices were distributed to locations around the world. Pilots who had trained in secret prepared for missions that should have been impossible. Soldiers learned to operate equipment they had never seen before, equipment designed from stolen Dominion specifications. Everything depended on perfect timing. One mistake, one leak, one moment of hesitation, and the plan would fail. Humanity would have no second chance. On the night before the operation, Elena stood outside the facility and looked up at the stars. The Velthri ships were visible even from here, dark shapes blocking out the constellations. For 6 months, they had hung over her world like a threat, like a promise of slavery. "We are coming for you," she whispered to the darkness. "You wanted our planet. You will regret that choice." Across the world, billions of people went to sleep without knowing that tomorrow would change everything. Without knowing that the human race was about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. The Velthari had made one mistake. They had assumed that, because humans fought each other, they would never stand together. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The morning began like any.
Author.
On Commander Silix's flagship, officers performed their duties with the lazy confidence of soldiers who believed victory was already theirs. Some watched human entertainment on their screens. Others napped in their quarters. A few practiced the strange human languages they had learned, planning to use them when they finally took their posts on the surface. Silix himself was reviewing colonization plans. Earth would become a mining world, mostly. The humans would work in the deep places, extracting metals and minerals for Dominion use. Some would be educated and brought into service as technicians. The rest would simply labor until they were no longer useful. It was efficient. It was the Dominion way. At exactly 14 o'clock Earth time, the sky fell. The first sign was silence. Every screen on the flagship went dark at the same moment. Every light flickered and died. The gentle hum of the engines, so constant that most crew members no longer heard it, suddenly stopped. Silix stood frozen in the darkness. For 3 heartbeats, he could not understand what was happening. Then emergency lighting activated, casting everything in dim red, and alarms began to scream. "Report," he shouted. "What is happening?" His officers ran to their stations, but nothing responded. Consoles were dead. Communication systems showed only static. The great weapons that could destroy continents sat cold and useless. "Commander," his second officer said, her voice shaking, "we have lost all primary systems. Navigation is offline. Weapons are offline. Communications are offline. We are." She swallowed hard. "We are drifting. That is impossible. Our systems are protected by quantum encryption. No primitive species could. It is not just us, Commander. Look." Through the viewing port, Silix could see other Dominion ships. Every single one was dark. 200 warships, the pride of the Dominion fleet, floated dead in space like leaves on still water. "How?" he whispered far below. On the surface of Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her screens light up with success codes. Every device had activated perfectly. The quantum signal had spread through Dominion technology like a virus, shutting down everything it touched. For the next several hours, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was nothing but floating metal. "These two," General Morrison said. "Launch everything." From hidden airfields on every continent, aircraft rose into the sky. They were human aircraft, primitive by galactic standards. Jets and helicopters and experimental craft that had never been tested in combat. They should not have been able to challenge Dominion technology. But Dominion. Technology was asleep. The aircraft did not carry weapons. They carried soldiers. Thousands of men and women who had trained for this moment without knowing if it would ever come. They flew toward the silent ships above, their hearts pounding, their hands steady. On the flagship, Silix heard the sound first. A dull thump against the outer hull. Then another. Then dozens more. "They are boarding us," his second officer said in disbelief. "The humans are boarding our ships." Silix reached for his sidearm, but even that was dead. Dominion weapons used the same quantum network as everything else. The most advanced personal weapon in the galaxy was now a useless piece of metal. "Find anything that works," he ordered. Anything at all. But there was nothing. The Dominion had built their technology to be perfectly connected, perfectly efficient. They had never imagined that connection could be turned against them. The first humans entered the flagship through an emergency airlock. They wore simple combat gear and carried chemical-powered weapons. The kind of primitive guns the Dominion had abandoned centuries ago. Those primitive guns worked perfectly well. The fighting was brief. Velthari soldiers, trained for combat in powered armor with energy weapons, found themselves facing enemies with nothing but bullets and determination. It was not a fair fight, but it was not a massacre either. The humans had been given strict orders. Capture, not kill. Take prisoners, not lives. Every Velthri who surrendered was treated with respect, given medical care if needed, and secured in safe locations. Silex did not understand this. When his bridge was finally breached and human soldiers pointed their weapons at him, he expected death. He had seen the destruction of that island. He knew what the Dominion would do to any species that resisted. Surely, the humans would want revenge. A woman stepped through the soldiers. She was small by human standards, with dark hair and tired eyes. But when she spoke, everyone listened. Commander Silex, Dr. Elena Vasquez said, "Your fleet now belongs to humanity. Your weapons are ours. Your ships are ours. Your technology is ours." Silex stood tall, refusing to show fear. "Then kill me." "That is what conquerors do." Elena studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that confused him more than anything else that had happened. She smiled. "We are not conquerors, Commander. We are something you have never seen before." She turned to the human soldiers. "Take him to the medical bay. Make sure he is comfortable. Get him something to eat." "What?" Silex said. "No. You came to our world with weapons and threats. You destroyed our land and demanded our surrender. And now you are our prisoner." Elena stepped closer, and her eyes held no hatred, only a strange kind of sadness. "But we are not going to hurt you. We are not going to torture you. We are going to talk to you. And you are going to tell us everything." Silex was led away in confusion. Around him, the flagship was filling with humans. They moved through the corridors with purpose, securing systems, treating wounded Velthri, taking control of everything. None of them seemed angry. None of them seemed cruel. He did not understand. Across the fleet, the story repeated itself. 200 ships captured. Thousands of Velthri taken prisoner. The greatest military force in the sector had been defeated in a single day by a species that had not even reached its nearest planet. On Earth, people gathered in streets and squares, watching the news in disbelief. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy that should have been unstoppable, they had won. But Elena knew the truth. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. The Dominion would send more ships. They would want revenge. Humanity had bought itself time, nothing more, unless they could find another way. She looked out at the captured fleet, at the prisoners being led to holding areas, at the impossible victory that had somehow become real. There had to be another way, and she intended to find it, Commander. Silex had been a prisoner for 3 weeks, and he still did not understand his captors. They had given him a comfortable room with a soft bed and clean clothes. They brought him food 3 times a day, and the food was good. When he was sick from stress, they sent a doctor who treated him gently and asked about his symptoms with genuine concern. No one had struck him. No one had threatened him. No one had done any of the things he had been trained to expect from enemies. It was driving him mad. The young human officer came every day. His name was Captain James Chen, and he was the brother of Dr. Wei Chen, one of the scientists who had brought down the fleet. James did not look like a warrior. He was thin and quiet, with kind eyes and a patient manner. He never demanded information. He never made threats. He simply sat with Silex and talked. At first, Silex refused to speak. He was a Dominion officer. He would die before betraying his people. He waited for the real interrogation to begin. The pain and the fear that would eventually break him, it never came. Instead, James asked about Silex's homeworld, about his family, about what Velthri children played with, what songs they sang, what stories they told. He seemed genuinely interested, and his questions were so strange that Silex sometimes answered without thinking. "You have a daughter," James said one day. It was not a question. Silex felt his chest tighten. "How do you know this?" "Your officers talk about you. They say you carry her image in a small container, close to your heart." James leaned forward slightly. "You must miss her very much." Silex said nothing, but his hand moved unconsciously toward his chest, where the small picture used to rest before the humans had taken his belongings. I have a daughter too, James said. She is 4 years old. When your ships appeared in our sky, she asked me if the aliens would hurt her. I did not know what to say. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. What do you want from me? Silex finally asked. You have captured our fleet. You have our technology. What more could you possibly need? James sat back in his chair. The truth, he said simply. We want to understand why you came here. Not the official reasons. Not the Dominion propaganda. The real reason? Silex laughed bitterly. We came because we are the Dominion. We conquer. It is what we do. No, James said quietly. That is not the whole truth, is it? Your officers talk about other things too. They whisper about something called the silence. They say that is the real reason the Dominion expands. Not for power. For survival. The word hit Silex like a physical blow. The silence. The name that Dominion citizens were forbidden to speak. The fear that lived in the heart of every Velthari who knew the truth. Who told you that name? Many of your people. When they realized we were not going to hurt them, they began to talk. They are tired, Commander. Tired of conquest. Tired of fear. Tired of running. James leaned forward again. What is the silence? Silex closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter, so far away, growing up in a civilization built on lies. He thought of the centuries he had spent conquering worlds, telling himself it was necessary, telling himself there was no other way. And he began to talk. The silence was not a weapon or an enemy in any normal sense. It was something worse. Something that defied understanding. 1,000 years ago, the Velthari had encountered it at the edge of their territory. Ships had vanished without trace. Colonies had gone quiet overnight. Entire systems had simply ... stopped. There was no warning. No communication. No remains. Just emptiness where life had been. The Dominion had tried to fight it. They sent their greatest fleets, their most powerful weapons. Nothing worked. The silence could not be attacked because there was nothing to attack. It simply moved forward, slow but unstoppable, consuming everything in its path. So the Velthari ran. They built their empire in the opposite direction. Always expanding, always moving away from the darkness behind them. Every conquered world was not just a resource. It was a buffer, a barrier between the Dominion's core worlds and the thing that followed them. We do not conquer because we want to, Silex said, his voice hollow. We conquer because we are terrified. Every world we take is another step away from extinction.
James
Listened in silence. When Silex finished, the young captain sat very still for a long time. Does the High Council know about this? James asked. The Council has known for centuries. But they cannot tell the people. If citizens knew the truth, there would be panic. The Dominion would collapse. Silex shook his head. So we pretend. We tell ourselves we are conquerors, masters of the galaxy. But we are just prey, running from a predator we cannot see. And Earth. Why did you come to Earth? Silex met his eyes. Your world is far from Dominion space. Far from the silence? We thought, we hoped. It might be a place to establish a new center, a fallback position if the core worlds were ever lost. James stood and walked to the window. Outside, human workers were learning to operate Velthari technology under the guidance of captured engineers. Two species working together, slowly, carefully. What if you did not have to run anymore? James asked. Silex frowned. What do you mean? What if someone stood beside you? What if you had allies instead of subjects? What if you faced the silence together instead of alone? That is impossible. No species would help us. We have conquered too many worlds. We have made too many enemies. James turned back to face him. We would help you. Silex stared at him. Why? We came to enslave your world. We destroyed your land. We threatened your children. Why would you ever help us? Because that is what humans do, James said simply. When we see someone in trouble, we help. Even if they hurt us first. Even if it makes no sense. It is who we are. Silex felt something break inside him. All his training, all his pride, all his certainty about how the universe worked. It crumbled in the face of this small human and his impossible kindness. For the first time in 300 years, Commander Silex Venn began to weep. And in that moment, everything changed. 1 year after the invasion, a fleet departed from Earth's solar system. It was not a human fleet or a Velthari fleet. It was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Silex Venn stood on the bridge of the flagship and watched the stars streak past. Beside him stood Captain Elena Vasquez, now wearing a uniform that combined elements from both species. Behind them, a crew of humans and Velthari worked together at stations designed for cooperation. "Are you ready?" Elena asked. Silex thought about the question. A year ago, he had been a conqueror, certain of his place in the universe. Now he was something else entirely. An ally, a partner, perhaps even a friend. "I have served the Dominion for 3 centuries," he said. "I thought I knew what strength looked like. Warships and weapons. Fear and obedience. But I was wrong." Elena nodded but said nothing. "True strength," Silex continued, "is what your people showed me. When you had every reason to hate us, you chose mercy. When you could have destroyed us, you offered alliance. That takes more courage than any battle I have ever fought." The ship hummed around them, carrying them toward Dominion space. Toward a meeting that would either save 2 civilizations or doom them both. The decision to form an alliance had not been easy. On Earth, many had demanded revenge. They wanted the Velthari punished for the invasion, for the destroyed island, for the months of fear. Some had called for the captured fleet to be turned against Dominion worlds, to give them a taste of their own medicine. But in the end, cooler heads had won. World leaders had listened to the intelligence gathered from Velthari prisoners. They had learned about the silence. They had understood that the Dominion was not an enemy to be destroyed, but a potential partner to be saved. The vote in the United Nations had been close. But humanity had chosen the harder path, the path of forgiveness. Now that choice would be tested. The coalition fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Dominion space. Within minutes, warships surrounded them. Dozens of vessels, each one powerful enough to destroy a planet, their weapons locked onto the coalition flagship. "They are hailing us," a communication officer reported. Silex stepped forward. "Put them through." The face of High Admiral Korvax appeared on the screen. She was old, even by Velthari standards, and her eyes held centuries of war and loss. She had been Silex's commander once, long ago. Now she looked at him like a stranger. "Silex," she said coldly. "You return in chains, I see. Forced to speak for your captors." "High Admiral, I return freely. These humans are not my captors. They are my allies." Korvax's expression did not change. "You have betrayed your species. You have given our enemies, our technology, our secrets. The punishment for such crimes is death." "I have betrayed nothing," Silex said firmly. "I have done what the Dominion should have done long ago. I have found us friends." Lena stepped forward into the screen's view. "Hi, Admiral. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of Earth. We did not come here to fight. We came here to offer alliance." "Alliance?" Korvax's voice dripped with contempt. "Your species has been aware of our existence for 1 year. You know nothing of galactic politics, nothing of the dangers we face. What could you possibly offer the Dominion?" "Hope," Elena said simply. The word hung in the air. On the Dominion ships, officers exchanged uncertain glances. Hope was not a word used often in Velthari society. It was considered weak, foolish, the province of species that had not yet learned how cruel the universe could be. "We know about the silence," Elena continued. "We know you have been running from it for 1,000 years. We know you conquer worlds not out of strength, but out of fear. And we know that running will not work forever." Korvax's face hardened. "How do you know these things?" "Because your people told us. When we showed them kindness, they showed us truth." Elena took a step closer to the screen. "The Dominion has tried to face the silence alone. It has not worked. Perhaps it is time to try something different. You are suggesting we trust primitives who defeated us through trickery? I am suggesting you trust the only species in the galaxy that has ever beaten you, and then offered friendship instead of chains. Elena's voice was steady, calm, certain. We are not your enemies, High Admiral. We could be your greatest allies, but only if you let us. The silence stretched on. Korvac stared at the human woman with an expression that was hard to read. Behind her, Dominion officers waited for orders. Around the Coalition fleet, weapons remained locked and ready. Finally, Korvac spoke. The Council will hear your proposal, she said. But know this, human. If this is a trick, if this is some scheme to weaken us, there will be no mercy. The Dominion does not forgive betrayal. Neither do we, Elena replied. But we have learned that mercy and forgiveness are not the same thing. Mercy is what you show to the helpless. Forgiveness is what you show to the strong. We forgive you, High Admiral. Now we ask you to be brave enough to accept it. The communication ended. The Dominion ships did not fire. Instead, they formed an escort, guiding the Coalition fleet toward the heart of Velthary space. 3 months later, the treaty was signed. The Terran-Velthary coalition became official. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Dominion had allies instead of subjects. And then came the message. It was broadcast on every frequency, sent to every corner of known space. Elena had written it herself, with help from Silex and Captain Chen and 100 others who believed in what they were building. To all species of the galaxy, the message began. You have heard of Earth. You have heard that we captured a Dominion fleet and then forgave our captors. Some of you think we are fools. Some of you think we are weak. You are wrong. We are humanity. We spent our entire history fighting each other, and in doing so, we learned something important. War is easy. Peace is hard. Destruction is simple. Building is difficult. But the difficult path is usually the right one. The Dominion came to our world as conquerors. They left as friends. This is not because we are naive. It is because we choose to believe that every species, no matter how hostile, has the capacity for growth, for change, for something better. There is a darkness coming. It is called the silence, and it threatens us all. We cannot face it alone. None of us can. But together, standing side by side, we might have a chance. This is our invitation. Not to submit, not to surrender.
No.
To join us. To build something the galaxy has never seen. A true alliance of equals, bound not by fear, but by hope. We do not know if we will succeed. We do not know if we can stop what is coming. But we know this. We would rather face the darkness with friends than survive alone in the light. We are humanity, and we are waiting for you. Across the galaxy, in hidden places and forgotten worlds, species began to answer. Ships emerged from shadows where they had hidden for generations. Voices spoke that had been silent for centuries. The stars had never felt so bright, and somewhere in the darkness, the silence continued its advance. But for the first time in 1,000 years, something was moving to meet it. Together,